are we talking about when we say the word innovation? Because when you say innovation, you imagine the future. But innovation is not only about the future. It's not about talking about the future. Innovation is about doing today the future. So to innovate, suppose to imagine something in the future, something I don't have now, but I would like to have in the future. A product, a service, anything you want. But in order to go there, I need to go to the past, because I need the resources and the experience I had in the past. So innovation is about bringing the future into the present using the past experience and the resources. It's very important to keep this image in your mind, because innovation is something beyond time. Innovation is what you are doing today, right this moment. You are innovating because you will hear something new. So we invited today Alexandru Nita, who is Innovation Manager at BRD Group Societe Generale.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you for the invitation.
We'll have an exchange about innovation, and we'll keep about 10-15 minutes at the end in order to have some questions from the audience. So basically, I'm a journalist. I founded a community, We Come From the Future, and I'm very happy to be with you today because I'm very excited about Innovation Labs. Innovation Labs is, makes me feel at home. So, first question, Alexandru.
Sure.
How do you innovate in a world where the technology advances faster than our capacity to understand it? I think you already feel it. I mean, you will go to sleep tonight, and tomorrow in the morning we'll have something new in the technology, something very disruptive.
Yes.
Every day, every day, every day.
Of course.
So it's going very, very fast, faster and faster. So how do you deal with, because our capacity of understanding what's happening is very limited.
Exactly.
How do you deal with that?
So it's a very tedious process, to be honest. I mean, it might seem as an uphill battle, right? Because as Miral was saying, things are changing quite rapidly, mostly exponentially. And unfortunately, regulations do not keep up with the advancement of technology. For example, ChatGPT was launched, I think, end of 2022. And the AI Act was only signed, I think, less than 1 month ago by the European Commission, European Parliament. So given the current context of the evolution of technology and given the circumstances of the banking sector, which has a very low appetite for risk, right, and is very known to be tangled up in red tape, unfortunately, we have to take precautionary steps, right, in dealing with innovation and actually giving time to the delivery teams in a better understanding the technology behind the solutions that tech companies are proposing, and also giving them the right resources, right, to be able to do the research and actually do small-scale proof of concept or MVPs, which they can actually foster within the organization and scale them up as they better understand the technology.
I have a second question. So the corporation has a hierarchy and procedures. Innovation is disrupted by nature. So it's kind of a contradictory. Now it's like in physics, we have the gravitation when we have the expansion of the electromagnetic field. So we have these two forces opposing each other. And in business, it's the same. I mean, you have disruptive innovation, and you have, as a big corporation, hierarchy, procedures, and so on. How do you deal with both?
So it's definitely not a match made in heaven, to be honest, because someone needs to manage that relationship, and that's where I step in, the innovation manager. Part of the things or the the endeavors that I have over there are to manage the change and the way that change happens within the organization. So bringing to the table the C-level executives with the delivery teams and people who are scouting for new technologies, right, on the markets, along with, of course, government officials and whatnot, who are the actual regulators. And we have to bring them all together, explain the technology, so that trust is being built progressively between them, and they are able to push forward certain decisions to move forward, implementing new technologies, building products on new technologies, which is not an easy thing to do, right? It takes time, of course, and you also need to build up a community, an innovation community, because this is the principle which we also gathered from the group, from Societe Generale, and we have this principle of continuous learning, continuous improvement, long life, long life teaching, and it needs to be spread out throughout the organization. But it takes, of course, it takes loads of time and resources, of course, which everyone is competing nowadays for resources, either because they have regulatory projects that they need to deliver on, or they have business projects, which of course generate revenue. Okay. So, in a nutshell, that would be the challenge in bringing together at the same table regulators with C-level executives, delivery teams, and of course, everyone is tangled in red tape. Unfortunately, the banking sector, as said before, is a highly regulated sector, and it's for the best. If you would have asked me this 10 years ago, I would be surprised to have this answer today, because I did not believe in regulations. It was my way or the highway, to be honest. I was the one testing in production, to be honest. So, yes, but things are there in place to secure the safety of the information, both the client, also secure the safety of the corporation. Right? It's important to have regulations. But navigating through them is quite tedious at times.
I think for my generation and for your generation, it was easier in a way, because we have, for instance, my generation, the dream of my generation was to make some studies in a very good university, to have a diploma in the end, and then to have a good job, and then to have a pension, and then to live your life when your life is finished. This was the dream of my generation. But the advantage was that the regulators could imagine laws able to create, how they say, a don't find the word, the juridical field for a whole generation. While now, these guys, they will have to change about, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs during their professional life because of the technology. So it's very complicated for the regulator as well to adapt to something that is changing all the time. How could we imagine the future from this perspective, from the regulator perspective? Because the regulator has a problem. The speed at which the technology is evolving created a lot of problems, and the regulator don't have time to integrate what's happening.
Yes, so we've seen this happen before with blockchain, right, with cryptocurrencies and whatnot, and also it's happening nowadays with AI and machine learning. I don't think that they will be able to keep up this incremental step, right, in evolution of the technologies. That's why at a certain point in time there will be legislative gaps, voids, right, which of course many actors will take advantage of, as they did with the cryptocurrencies and with the blockchain. For example, we also had some, I would say, interesting interactions with the authorities, as an example. So I think that it was more than 5 years ago when they announced that they will be issuing electronic identity cards, right? We were very happy because most of our plans, most of our strategies were putting BRD as a digital-first bank, right? To transform all our processes, our paper-based processes, from human interaction to shift them onto online, where you can open up an account, get a loan, and whatnot. So it would have been very important for us to have the electronic identity cards in time. Unfortunately, at the time we made the request for them to provide us with the sample, it took, I think, more than 9 months to have a sample from them, from the authorities. We only have one sample, if you can believe it, for the entire banking industry in Romania. This is the sample. It's an electronic identity card. And by the time that they launched the pilot at Cluj, where they issued over 5,000 electronic identity cards, we had in place a machine learning OCR engine, which was developed by one of the students which graduated here at Politehnica, Răzvan Pistola, which has a company, AIception. We built a dedicated service to process the images and extract the metadata, because as you can see now, you have information both on the front and on the back of the identity card. This format, which is similar to the driver's license, is called ISO ID1, the format, the size of it. Now, you have information on the front and the back, but you also have information on the chip, which is written on the chip partition. And the way that you can access the information on the chip is via direct chip contact using smart cards or over NFC. We developed all of these services, all of these microservices stacks. We actually went a step further. We've built a dedicated prototype with one of our IT companies. We had everything in place just to launch the pilot. But unfortunately, the government will only start issuing throughout the country these electronic identity cards starting with 2026. And it's also a rough estimation. So imagine how long it took us, the investments that we made, the effort that we put into this, and we are not able to launch, unfortunately, because of the authorities and the way that they are falling behind our expectations, to be honest.
We have to say there is a huge gap between we have in Romania an army of IT people, and when you look at the administration, Romanian administration, unfortunately, we are really, really left behind.
Yes.
I just made an interview a few days ago with Bogdan Putenica, the CEO of Microsoft Romania and Moldova. And he told me what's happening in Moldova. In Moldova, not in the United States. I mean, in Moldova, everything is digitalized. In Moldova.
It's incredible.
So we have a problem. We have here young people. They will create startups. Some of them, they already have done it. Some of them will do it in the future. And they have this entrepreneurial spirit,
mindset,
you know,
yeah.
and mindset. And I think for a big corporation, now it's very interesting to take this kind of energy and to bring it into the corporation.
It is.
How do you deal with this entrepreneurship mindset? Because in the corporation, you need this kind of entrepreneurship today.
So it's a good starting ground, especially for young individuals, because we set the stage for them to actually bring their all novel ideas, let's call them, innovative ideas, right? They lack the risk of going out into the wilderness, so to speak, as a normal entrepreneur. So within the company, you are being fostered, right? You're not being judged if you make any mistakes. It's expected to make mistakes, especially while building up your experience, technical experience, your confidence, right? You see how the team begins to work together. So it's expected. Everything is fine from this point of view. That's why we encourage, even our senior developer teams, delivery teams, we encourage them to be autonomous. We operate on the principle, you will build it, you will run it. You will need to take care of it, right, throughout its life cycle as a product or as a service. That being said, it's the normal way of conducting business nowadays and actually delivering, using this agile framework, which enables you to have short spans between building, testing, right? Sketching new ideas and over again. The time to market is very important, right? It's becoming more and more important. We are not allowing ourselves, or the market is not allowing us to have a waterfall approach to projects anymore. Meaning you will build a rocket ship. You cannot build it with agile, right? You need to build the whole rocket and then launch it. You cannot build it stage by stage and, and launch it. These are the expectations of the market nowadays. The attention span also has been reduced, unfortunately, due to the social networks, right? If we do not have your attention in the first 15 seconds, you will swipe, even though it's reality. You will switch to another service, right? Which is better, is faster, is more in tune with your expectations. That's why whenever we build stuff, we build it with a client-centric approach, meaning we put the client in the middle of everything that we build, either a product or a service. That's why we also deploy user behavior analysis to understand what our clients are eager to try out, to see, to test, what are their expectations. And we try to keep up with them. Even though, as again mentioned, regulations within a bank are very strict. And the whole ecosystem, the infrastructure, is very tight. And you will see in the news that there are quite a lot of attacks going on from foreign actors, distributed denial of service, right? It's a theme. I think they went up 30%. That's why it's expected to have an elevated security posture and an elevated security policy in place. But fintechs or startups do not understand all the time this concept, because it needs to safeguard what's most valuable to us, which is the client information.
How does BRD Group Société Générale position itself in the future? Because you talk about this card, but I suppose you have other projects.
Yes.
I will not ask you to talk about confidential projects, but what could we imagine on the BRD Group Société Générale side when we think about the future?
So we are operating on two fundamental pillars, which of course are aligned with the group policy and the group strategy, which is to have services and products with a client-centric approach, as I've said earlier, but also they need to be sustainable, right? We are willing to up our investment, right? We are willing to scale up our resources in terms of having teams try out new technologies, get used to them, and then have them implemented so that it's easier for us. When we are in the framing stage of a project, it's easier for us to pick and choose, right, from technologies, because we already understand the technologies. We do not spend unnecessary time within that stage of the project, right? We build up an asset book, let's call it, of technologies and products from which we can choose, right? It speeds up the whole process. That's why I think that it's important nowadays to allow everyone to test new technologies, to have people, as yourself, debate about this type of new technologies, have open conversations, have people address their concerns, and that's the only way that we can actually move forward and get the other people, which do not, of course, speak our language, on board this rocket ship, let's call it.
I'll put a more personal question. I mean, these people are very young. I mean, they are at the beginning of their professional life, and I'd like to know what was the trigger in your professional life? What brought you here? What made you an innovation manager at BRD Group Société Générale? What are your days made of?
Okay, so I started off as a system engineer in Brașov. I'm originally from Brașov.
He's coming from Brașov. He's going back to
I'm
Brașov.
Going back home in the evening. So, to be honest, to be fully open, at the time I was, I think, 20 or 21, something like that. And unfortunately, we did not have the proper tools in place at my first job over there. It was also at BRD. There was a regional center for services. They dealt with payment, what are they called, checks and bonds and whatnot. They were being processed manually. Someone had to type them in, and we were the system administrators. Also there, they were doing the analysis for the loans, either mortgages or for private individuals, consumer loans, right? And we had to keep the system up and running. And we did not have the proper tools. So we had to build our tools, right? We were the first innovators of our generation over there. We did not have anything. We did not have a tool to follow through a loan file, right? To take it through its steps. So that they were keeping those registries within Excel files. You know, the world works on Excel files, but believe me, it was not normal at the time, right? So after moving from Brașov to Bucharest, I started working in operations at our data center in Șuseaua Berceni. We have one of the best data centers in Romania. It's a tier 3 data center with loads of technology, which you can test out. But it was definitely a shift in mindset for me. when I first encountered those people over there, which were all expert level, right? There were like 100 people. I said, I want to be part of this team. So I made it my mission to get over there, and I had a lot of mentors, loads of mentors along the way. And they slowly explained to me why it's important to follow my career path, to respect the learning curve, right? Always be mindful of that. They also explained to me why it's important to have rules and regulations. That's when the mindset also shifted. And after that, I moved into the tower, into the BRD tower in Piazza Victoriei, and was part of the delivery team as an innovation manager. So as part of the delivery team, you have project managers, software engineers, you have testers, you have also the enterprise architect, right, which is in charge of the system strategy for the whole infrastructure of the bank. And that's when I also started understanding what were the gaps, what was missing, started scouting the marketplace for new technologies, building new relationships with all sorts of vendors, right? So that's why also the title was very interesting, Mirel, what you told me, that innovation actually, what was it? Innovation expands the corporation. Because through innovation, you are able, regardless of the type of company that you are, to go into other businesses, into other verticals. And that's what we actually did at a certain point. We started having our own infrastructure for archiving legal documents, electronic legal documents, right? And we went to MCC and we got our accreditation for that. We got our license for that. And we are also looking to get into new business lines, new verticals in the near future, which makes sense to us, especially given the digital transformation era which we are in at the moment.
It's an interesting time because you said that at the beginning of your professional life, you didn't have the tools that allow you to build the business, while these young people, they have the tools. I mean, yes. This is a huge difference. You have the tools to transform an idea into a startup, into a business. You have the mentors. You have innovation labs. You have such opportunities my generation didn't have. We dreamt about it. Yes. So you have a lot of chances, and take advantage of it, because it's really very interesting time to be alive. Do we have some question online? Please interact with us. You can stop us. We can listen to your questions, answer. I don't want to spend a whole hour just talking here. But I'm curious to have some reactions from the audience. Yes? Please.
Sorry if I didn't pay full attention, but I didn't really understand why that project with the cards hasn't been launched.
Well, because it would require the authorities to have a mass deployment of the electronic cards nationwide, right? So we are not able to make such a large investment, right, to build all of those gadgets, those devices, which I mentioned earlier, to spread them around the branches nationwide before the actual launch date of the electronic identity cards. It would make no sense for us to make that investment up front, even though we do not know the clear deadline for the mass rollout.
Okay. Couldn't it be used like a smartphone to do something that a special device could do? Like
we have everything in place. We have tablets in place to do that, right? But we would like a dedicated device to do more than capture the information from the identity card. We want a special device to actually set aside all the paper interactions. So go fully digital within the branch, which means that you will have a 10-inch tablet, touch-enabled tablet, which has on front a camera. It also has an NFC reader. It has the smart card reader. Below it has a camera to capture documents and passports or identity cards. So we also would need to bring on the whole stack of services to enable the tablet to display information on it, right? To have the interaction with the trust service providers, to issue the qualified electronic signatures, to be able to sign, right? because you would need a qualified signature just to have the same legal value as you would have on paper, right? So you need the full stack to roll out. It would not make sense to have only the specific part which deals with the electronic identity cards. And this is one vertical that we would like to go into, to become a trust service provider. It makes sense for us, right? To become one of the 5 or 6 trust service providers in Romania to issue qualified electronic signatures. As you've seen now with Invoice, right? All businesses were required to have their electronic certificates, their certified signatures, which provide the highest level of trust, of course. That would have been an interesting business to go into at the time. Because think about it, we have I think 400 to 450 branches, which can also act as points of interaction, points of sale for different type of services and products, right? Especially for electronic certificates, because you will be able to issue the qualified signature onto the electronic identity card, right? That would make sense. I hope that answered your question. So
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Thanks. There's another one.
I would like to encourage everybody to address some questions because, you know, as we did the other times, we have some prizes for you. And Mirel and Alexandru will choose each one question from the audience, from the online or the offline audience. And today we have some products from Răzvan Idicel. He has some smash vegetables, zakuska, and jam, dulceață. Okay, so somebody?
Over there.
So hi, my question would be, so if I understood correctly, you basically manage which new products are built inside the company, right? More or less.
yes.
And my question is, how exactly do you get such a new product approved, like the development of a new product? Because each new product means a big bet. Like you invest time, people, money, stuff, and basically each new development is a big bet. How do you get something like that approved?
So basically, we see a novel technology, right?
And sorry, could you also speak up a little? I find it difficult to...
Sure, okay. So basically, each year we conduct the annual project list, right? Business lines come in and say, we are interested in developing these types of products or services, right? And then we have the regulatory projects. We put them all together in a mashup and actually build the budget for next year to tackle these projects. As a side project, as a side budget for these projects, we have the innovation envelope, what is called the budget dedicated to innovation. Within that innovation budget, we are able to freely address all new technologies, right, or products, or fintechs, or startups, which might be able to deliver some part of the whole product or service that is being addressed here in the large-scale project, right? So that's why we're very flexible in terms of using that envelope, that budget envelope as we see fit, right? As long as we deliver value for the project itself, and of course for the clients. But we also have the innovation committees, as mentioned before, where we bring on board the executives and we present the solutions that we would like to demo, right? We would like to have an MVP, to have a proof of concept. And they approve it or they disregard it. They just say, okay, look for something else. Or we build it and they say, okay, start from scratch. It's not worth it anymore. So it's expected to have some losses, right? Whenever doing research. I think that should answer your question.
So you were just talking right now about the fact that big companies have a budget for innovation. I was wondering, how does innovation happen at big companies, and what would the difference be between how you'd see innovation coming from a startup against a big company, and what advantage might we have over a big company when it comes to innovation?
Okay, that's a very good question. So I think that the prize will go to you. Because indeed, we operate at different speeds, right? We will never compare to a startup or to a fintech. strictly because of the regulations in place and all the red tape that we need to deal with. Now, that being said, I would not call it innovation, to be honest. We are late adopters, to be honest, of new technologies, right? The ones that are the spear of the technologies are actually the technology companies and the startups. We then look at the market because there is an interesting saying. It goes, the early bird takes the worm, but the second mouse takes the cheese, right? So keep that in mind, because we will not invest in a technology that is not mature enough to be deployed into an enterprise level architecture. So that's why we scout the market, we look at the trends, we see what the outcomes were of different types of investments, right? And then we act upon it.
It's also about time. I mean, you have R&D companies, startups dealing with projects that takes years to build. I met a company, a startup in Ploiești, which is building a neuromorphic computer. It's something really crazy. They have some few $1 million from Tim Draper Fund from the United States. But I mean, you need to be Tim Draper Fund to put some millions in a project you don't have any visibility for years.
Or certainty that it will go to market, right?
Could be a huge project, but it could fail as well. Please.
Thank you.
So I have about 2 questions. First one,
Hi.
First one would be, could you please discuss the role of customer feedback and user-centric design in your feedback process?
Okay, so customer feedback is an important topic for us because it basically sets the stage for what we are going to build next or improve next in terms of our services. And we do that through our whole range of networks, of branches, but of course through the support lines, right? And through feedback forms, so to speak, which is very basic. But we mash up all this information and then we provide it to the product owners of that specific service or product, and they're able to interpret it, right? And give it a flavor, discuss it with their teams, and actually prioritize what needs to be built so that client expectations are met.
Okay, and my second question would be, mostly as a bank, I suppose, how do you say, I found an idea, it's not exactly what I'm looking for, but I can reformulate this into my bank. Like you're finding something into a field that could be relevant. How often does that happen? What makes you think that?
Well, it happens quite a lot. There is also a lot of background noise in this industry. I mean, you need to break apart the marketing theme and the whole hype of new technologies and actually see what the value of the product or the service is. It's also a source of frustration for me personally because I bring forth loads of technology for my top management to choose and pick from, and they are very picky, to be honest. They are very picky because they need to deal with the risks. It's like having a ripple effect in a pond, right? You cannot insert a new piece of technology in an ecosystem, it's like a piece of a puzzle, right? And not deal with risk or other issues, which will definitely occur. And it's something that I am struggling with because it's difficult for me to put myself in their shoes and vice versa, right? But through different iterations, I would think that 10% of whatever is being proposed will actually go through, right? For example, we had, when Starlink, the internet service was launched, I went to them and told them, look, it's something that we really need to go into. We need to test it out because it might make sense for us to have the traditional landlines, the fiber optics, have radio transmissions and also have Starlink communications just in terms of business continuity plans. Which means if something happens to the primary data center, we have a disaster recovery center. If something happens to specific locations where specific processes are being conducted, we have secondary locations. But we need to ensure that they have communications, right? So I went to them and I asked them for some equipment, of course, and subscriptions to Starlink. They were very happy with it. It was actually a great success. In the meantime, we had to launch EasyPOS, our software version of the POS. And we went to an off-grid location, to Cabana Curmătura within the Piatra Craiului Mountains. I don't know if you've heard of it. And we had a discussions with the administrators over there and told them, would you like to use EasyPOS, being the only remote locations, which also had an interesting footfall, or a lot of people were coming in, both domestic and international clients, right, throughout the year. And they said, yes, of course, but we don't have any electricity here. And also we don't have any service, cell service here. And we said, okay, no issue. We brought in solar panels with battery packs and also deployed the Starlink communication over there on top of the solar panels. So this is just an example of a multitude of ideas that we come up and we bring forward to business, but not all of them are successful. Not all of them reach a certain level of maturity, which is expected, it's fine. But we are hoping to increase those numbers. Please.
So, for me, what do you do when, I suppose you do have a bit of a, let's say, fight with maybe the stakeholders, with the people with the money, let's say, right?
The sponsors.
Yeah, the sponsors, all that. How do you manage, do you get your vision across to them? How do you help them understand what your picture of the idea is, right? Like, maybe you're presenting them something, they don't understand it, they don't like it, but you can see that that exact picture is very useful. They just don't see it. How do you make them see it?
So the second prize goes to you, definitely. It happens quite often, to be honest. So look, as another example, back in 2018, I proposed a complete blueprint for BRD to become a trust service provider, to implement electronic signatures throughout the company and online services, right? They dropped it on the spot. They said, no, we're not going into that type of business at the moment.
6 years ago.
Yes, and I told them it's something that I would really like to do at this time. To also have a digital transaction management software, meaning that you are able to upload a specific file in electronic format and send it out to different contributors and gather the electronic signatures. It's very useful, especially for internal processes, right? They said, no, beat it, leave us alone. I said, please, at least let me have it on the test environment, right? And they said, oh, okay. What happened? So within the bank, you have signature rights for specific people. So we issued qualified signatures for about 300 to 400 people, and we also have had them onboarded onto this platform, which, by the way, as a side note, all platforms need to be deployed on the corporation's infrastructure. We are not very keen of using cloud services. So we did that, and of course, fast forward a couple of years, what happened? The pandemic broke out, and everyone was sent home, so no more paper-based interaction. So they were forced to use that specific platform, meaning I had a vision. It was difficult for me to impose my vision upon them. If you're hitting a brick wall, that's the case. You still need to push through it. But once they actually understood the value of the initial proposition, they said, good thing that we had this in place once the pandemic broke out. And again, you build this trust between sponsors, right, and C-level executives and whatever it is that you're proposing. It takes time, to be honest, and it depends on the mindset of the leaders.
Yeah, it's not an easy task. Yeah. Okay, it will be the last one, I think. We still have about 5 minutes.
As bachelor seed starter, is BRD interested in creating a similar project or already have one?
Yes, we are interested in deploying something similar, but we need to find the right moment in time to deploy it, right? Because now there are many initiatives which actually have the seeding programs, accelerators, and whatnot. So we're waiting for the right moment to deploy. Because nowadays we are focused on our operations, to be honest, because the focus is to have the services up and running as much as possible without any outside interference.
Okay, another question is, should we use an old technology used in the past by multiple companies and startups, or rather go for a new technology which wasn't used that much? What's your opinion?
I would say go with whatever works, right? Be mindful of the investment that you are willing to make in technology. It does not always yield the results that you are expecting, especially in the beginning, in the incipient part. That's why go with whatever works for you in terms of technology. Do not go for the hype. Do not, you need to shut that down.
Okay, in case we would need a financing for different projects for our startup, please give us some advice before applying to BRD.
It depends on what type of capital you are interested in, right? On what type of financing you are interested. If you go through an accelerator, a seeding program or whatnot, you know that you will have, the person who is giving you the loan out, the financing, will have a stake in your company. That's why you need to build that special relationship with them and know that they have finance as their main objective, right? Generating revenue, it's normal for people who invest. Whilst your primary goal should be to build your company, right? So they might not always match these visions. That's why, if it's possible, do it on your own.
Okay, so it's different, depends on the particular cases. They should
Definitely.
come to the office, for sure. And more detail about this one, what regulatory requirements do startups need to be aware of when establishing a business account or applying for financing?
Everything.
That's on top of your mind.
Unfortunately, they need to be aware of everything because you are not building a product or a service to deploy it in void, right? You are deploying it in an ecosystem, in an environment, to a company, to a partner, to whatnot. So you need, of course, GDPR. You need to be mindful of EIDAS 2.0, which is Electronic Identification, Authentication, and Trust Services, the regulation which actually governs the types of electronic signatures, which is very important. Of course, security standards, ISO 27001 and whatnot. There's a whole bunch of them. The AI Act now. So take it step by step, right? Because otherwise it would seem overwhelming. So baby steps, definitely.
So
one last question,
one last question
here.
So I have one last question. How disruptive was the blockchain technology in the fintech industry, if any, if at all?
We do not see it as disruptive as, let's say, the people who have generated cryptocurrency make it seem. As an example, we wanted to start a collaboration with the guys from CBU, right, Eldron Networks, to create what is called a stable coin, right, with the same correspondency from LEO to electronic LEO, let's say, over their infrastructure. Once they started explaining how their infrastructure works with processing nodes and whatnot, and what the stakes were, because you had to put down collateral for each processing node, we quickly understood that, okay, it's not for us, it might seem as a hustle, to be honest, right? What are actually interesting are the fintechs. For example, Revolut is quite interesting for us. But as a side note, Revolut only started generating profits from 2 years ago. So this year it had, I think, $26 million profit. Looking at the P&L statement, the profit and loss statement, and they were, I think they capitalized over 2 billion. So how can you have 2 billion capital and then only generate 26 million pounds profit? Something doesn't add up, right? And of course, they are in the retail league, right? They foster transfers between individuals. They now went into insurance. They went into private loans, personal individual loans. They went into the market of electronic SIMs, right? But once they scale up to corporate loans, it's a different story over there because things rapidly gather complexity.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, we reached the end of this debate. I think it's very important to find a balance between this, the disruption that each company is feeling right now. I read a study that told that more than half of the disruption in a corporation is coming from field out of the corporation. So you have to look not only inside your corporation, you have to look, you know, to Starlink and things that doesn't deal with the bank. But you need to pay attention to everything that is happening. You also need to avoid the hype because it's not easy as well. So it's kind of a play in order to find a balance between your resources, the future you imagine, and what you can do today to have the result you want, you know. So you will deal with all these kind of things in the future because you will create your startups, you will create your business, and maybe you will work with corporation as Alexandru, and you will deal with all this stuff. But it's funny. I mean, it's really interesting. It's really a good time to be alive, I think.
Yes.
Thank you very much, and we'll wait for the next.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandru.